All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the First Nations Housing Conference. This is the second session of the day. In this session, we'll explore how geographic information systems, GIS, can support sustainable housing in First Nation communities. I have Jasmine, team lead at Esri, will demonstrate how Esri tools can be quickly deployed for housing solutions. Barb Duffin, the director of Cree Geomatics at Mushkegowuk, unfortunately could not make it to the conference due to uncertain circumstances. We have Mike Rose from Shibogama. He's located in Sioux Lookout. He's a GIS specialist and will be joining the Esri team for this presentation. With a year of experience in his current role, he works to build GIS capacity within the Shibogama member First Nations, focusing on integrated GIS technology into their workflows and maintaining community asset data. Let's welcome Jasmine, Mike, and we also have Brian. So his name's not on the list, but
I'm a last minute substitution.
yes, pinch hitter.
Barb.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
No one can be Barb, but you can try.
All right, welcome everybody. I'm going to start by asking who is familiar with the concept of GIS, or a Geographic Information System here? Okay.
Like half the room.
I won't ask my second question then, because I have a pretty good idea that you may not know who Esri Canada and Esri are. Generally, everything on the planet has a location, right? When you think about it, the pad on the table, the pens, and what Esri and Esri Canada do is we enable the people tracking that piece of that item on the planet. Because there is so much data that can be associated with that item, we enable the intelligence behind that data to enable a community or a person to make a better decision, either for themselves, their business, or their community. Esri is the global leader in location intelligence. We have some partners here, such as Makwa 7, who use our technology and have an environment on First Nations land for those that are concerned about data sovereignty. And we work with many partners, including Microsoft, Amazon, SAP, some of the larger names. Esri Canada, based out of Toronto, that's where Jasmine and I are from, founded in 1984, we're privately held. We are the sole distributor in Canada for Esri technology, and our technology is used by municipal governments, retail operations, utilities. Enbridge Gas was a sponsor here. They use our utilities. Wate Power is a customer as well. So there's many utilities that use our technology, as well as First Nations. WBAFN, Union of Ontario Indians, Six Nations, Matawa First Nations, to name but a few of them, and we're working with all of them. What we're going to show you today is the technology in action. So Jasmine is going to start with showing you how the technology is configured. It's very easy. We provide the training if you're interested, and we can help the communities deploy this technology if they want. And immediately after sitting in on Shane's fire presentation, some of you may have remembered, if you were there, that I asked the question what the value would be for the fire responding personnel to have access to the data on the structure that they're driving to. And so we can help create that awareness to present to the fire individuals before they arrive on site for the safety of everyone. So Jasmine's going to go through the configuration part of it. Then we have Michael from Shibogama, who is a user and an Esri Canada partner, and he's going to show you how the technology is used in his community and those that he services. And then I will follow up with Barb's slides. Barb has done some fantastic work in her community. My presentation probably won't do it justice, but her email is at the end of the presentation. And if you want a copy of the presentation, Jasmine at the very end will put up a QR code here. All you got to do is scan it with your mobile device, enter your name and your email, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of the presentation. And the QR code that Jasmine is going to show you was spun up in a matter of minutes, which is how easy some of the technology can be to configure. So without further ado, I will turn it over to definitely the smarter two of us. and leave it to Jasmine.
So I guess I'm giving it to Michael then. Okay. Okay, hi everyone. As Brian said, I'm Jasmine. I'm a technical lead at Esri Canada. So what that basically means is I work directly with our users to kind of help them see the art of the possible with the technology. So, you know, if you have like an issue, you're trying to figure out how a map can help solve that problem or how data can help you with that problem, I'm there to help brainstorm that with you. So with that, there's a lot of things. So we're going to be focusing on what we call our field applications, which are basically our mobile native applications that help you do your work. The ArcGIS system as a whole, there's a lot of different moving parts. Oh, decided to animate on me on its own. As I was saying, so the ArcGIS system, we have desktop tools that let you do advanced analysis and work with drone imagery. We have applications online which allow you to create, okay, this is going to keep going, so I'm just going to do that so we can all see it this way. So yeah, we have like web applications that will allow you to, you know, create applications, to view information, query that information. And then we also have a way, if, let's say you don't have any data to begin with, or you want the ability for you to be able to take that information that you have on desktop screen and bring it to your device as a way to visualize your information. That's where kind of these mobile apps come in. So you can start to see here that we have kind of different parts of depending on what you're trying to do. So from the planning side of before you go out and do the work, how you plan and coordinate that work in general, navigating to that actual place, because a lot of times, you know, you might not have a specific road if it's a winter road, a private road. We have tools that allow you to actually navigate to that area depending on your own specific data as well. Then the big part here is the capturing of this information. Depending on the type of information you want to capture and how you want to actually interact with it will determine what type of application you're going to be using here. So Esri kind of does it in this way, so it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife of different tools. So depending on what you want to do and the interactivity you want with it will then determine, you know, which tool you're going to be using here. So let me just go next, so it won't let me. So the first app, I'm going to so there's going to be a lot of information on these slides. I put those there so that way as a takeaway for you when you're going to get access to this, you have all the information all on one slide. I'm just going to go over them in high level. So you'll see they're kind of busy. So we're going to start off with field maps, which essentially is a way for you to have a map first display on your device. So what this means is that you can, you see here that you first have a mobile phone, so you'll see a map first with all the information that you want to see on that. So whether that's utility information like substations, poles, whatever, it could be your community data, it could be, sensitive areas of high importance, or anything and everything that's kind of important to you as information, you can have that be enabled on the map itself. So in this case, that's how it kind of looks. So there's two components of it. There's going to be the person that's going to be designing that map, and then there'll be someone that's going out in the field and actually using that map. So that could be the same person, that could be two different people. That's all dependent on how you see this fits. Like for example, Michael could be the one that's preparing all the maps for everyone to use, and let's say me and Brian are the field workers. So Michael will author that information, then Brian and I will go out in the field and actually use that information that we see and interact with. So with that, there's like a designer side of how you want this to all look. It's all drag and drop, so as long as you can click, drag and drop with your mouse, you can definitely do everything that I'm showing here today. And I could even make a joke to say that if Brian can do it, trust me, anyone can do it, for sure. Okay. So with a couple of other things that you can add in here, there's this idea called geofencing, which essentially means is once you enter a specified area, that can enable more tools for you. So in the case of, for example, if you are going to a community to do a housing inspection on the different homes and buildings, it won't be until you actually enter into that community that you'll have access to those forms and those tools for you to access that information. You can also see here that you can do some smart forms. So if you want to add logic or calculations to kind of make it as easy as possible for that person interacting with the tool, you can definitely streamline that process for them. And so with the mobile app itself, a couple of things just to note is that you can see here for Android, it's available on Android and iOS. On iOS devices, you can put it on your Apple Watch too if you really wanted to. There's also, so in terms of the actual device, if it's a smartphone, smartphone or a tablet, doesn't really matter, Android or iOS, it's all available for you to use. So no matter, you don't have to buy now whole different hardware. You can use the existing hardware that you already have to use this. And the next tool here, so that was field maps. Key thing with field maps is you're using a map. First way to interact with your information and to interact with the tools. The next one here is called ArcGIS Survey 123, which essentially what means is it's a survey or a form-based way to collect this information. Again, there's two components here. The first one being someone that's going to be actually designing that form itself. And then the second component here is who's going to be actually doing the work and collecting that information. So you'll start to see here through these kind of screenshots, it's a form first way of collecting information. So if it's easier, everyone's kind of used to now, typing into a form or, inserting information into a form. That could be, if that's an easier way for your users to use that, then that might be the first way that you kind of look at this. And the key thing here that I just want to keep in mind is that you don't have to use one app or the other. Since it's all part of the ArcGIS ecosystem, anything can you can go between the two different applications if needed to as well. So for example, some of our users will use the Field Maps app to first get to the information and see that displayed on the map. And when you actually click on some of that data, that can launch into a survey form to now do that inspection information if required. So again, in terms of the Survey 123 website, there's ways for you to design that first and then share that information. And then if you want to create more advanced surveys, there's also an XLS version of this as well. And this can get very advanced, like if you wanted to use JavaScript to code in exactly at your location, what are the exact, weather conditions of exactly where you are, you can do that. That's how advanced as this can get. Or you can keep it very simple with the information that you need on it. So again, there's a mobile version of this too. And another key thing to add in here is that you don't have to be connected to the internet to use any of these tools. So if you are kind of out in an area where you don't have connectivity, that doesn't mean that you can't do your work. Everything's uninterrupted. You'll still be able to access the tools, access your information, and do the work that you need to do. And then once you're back in, let's say, the office, or you have connectivity again, you can go ahead and sync your edits up, and that way you haven't lost any of the work that you've done. And the last part here, it's not an app, but it's a web application, but not a mobile app. It's called Dashboards, which essentially is what it sounds like, a dashboard. It allows you to kind of configure everything all together into one view. That kind of allows you to, I think of it as kind of like the gateway to adoption, where once everyone sees a dashboard, they're like, wow, so cool, because you see all of your information and ready to use KPIs with charts, pie charts, whatever it may be, all in kind of one view of all that information. So rather than, once you've collected all the information, rather than, scrolling through rows and columns of data, why not display this in a ready-to-use, easy format? So especially if, for example, if your boss needs to quickly see what's going on with the information you've collected, a dashboard they can just click on and look at, rather than them digging into your work all the time and changing things that you don't want them to touch. So I've talked quite a bit. I'm going to go straight into showing you how this all works, because slides can do so much, but I think once we actually see these things in action, it'll make sense. So I'm just accessing everything through a web browser here. So this is a Survey 123 website, so you can start to see all the different surveys that I have. And we're just going to quickly go through an exercise of creating a new survey. And so I'm just clicking on here to create a new blank survey to start from scratch. But I'm the type of person that likes to work smarter and not harder. So we have some new capabilities in here that can make your work a little bit quicker. So in the case of, let's say, Brian has tasked me that I need to do a building inventory of my community, right? So first of all, that there could be questions that he specifically wants me to go ahead and search up and look at. In other cases, if I don't know what to ask, so I could go ahead and start dragging in and adding questions if I know them, but if I don't, we do have this little assistant, so if anyone that's used to using like a generative AI assistant like ChatGPT or something, we have a version of that for your survey forms. So I'm going to go ahead, so you can see there's some ready to use prompts, but I'm not going to use any of those. I'm going to say here, build me a survey to collect building inventory information in my community. I'll go ahead and add that in. And so then the generative assistant here is going to go through all the different types of questions. I can see all those, and I'm going to go ahead and click the generate button if I like it. I could type in all day and just tell it to change things around if I wanted it to. But in this case, it's going to go ahead and add those questions, and now my form is done. So from here, now what I can do is I can refine some of these questions. So for example, instead of having, adding in the address, sometimes we don't have an exact address of a location. So in case there, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And I'm actually going to put in a map question instead. So that way it'll give me a map. And then that way I can go straight to my live location of where I am, because in some cases we don't have an address. So in this case, you can see when I have that question clicked, I can just highlight over and I'll put in location of building. And I can also specify where I want that to be. So let me just go into, in this case, Thunder Bay, Ontario. It'll go ahead and zoom me there. One thing that you'll notice here right now, I'm using this kind of grayscale map. I can also choose from other maps here as well. We have actually something called the Community Maps Program, which is a partnership with communities, the provincial government, federal government, municipal government, and any other community members of our community map who actually provide us with all their data, so their topographic information, like for example, their streets, their parks, any kind of topographical information, and that way this all gets populated. It's no added cost in this case, it's just all part of the program. In most cases, it's because of the fact that they're all our users, so it's easy for them to just go ahead and share that information out to us. So I can make this zoomed in as close or far away as I need to. And now if I'm happy with this, I could go ahead and publish it. I actually already created one ahead of time, and why not, in case if anyone's feeling adventurous, if anyone wants to do a survey form with me, go ahead and scan it. If you want to go ahead and submit that right now, if anyone, it looks like some people have their phones out, I'll give everyone a minute. If you want to go ahead and submit in a building inventory form right now, so you can see exactly how easy this is to actually fill out and use. This is not the one that's going to give you the presentation, that's going to be at the end, but this one here is just if you want to, let's say you are going ahead and doing a building inventory here. So if that's, looks like people are on their phones, great, I will do one with you as well. So I will go into here, and you can see here I already have in things, so you can restrict some questions from being answered. So for example, the date of visit, that's already being calculated. I actually have to go into the live view of this. So let me go here, that was in the builder mode. So I'll go ahead and add in my name. And you can see here, it's going to take my live location, but I'm just going to go ahead and put a point somewhere randomly here. And you can start to see here, I'm kind of ready to use information here. So I'll do a single family house, 1 floor. Let's say that it was built in 2002. It's in excellent condition. So you can see here, if I have any structural issues, if I click yes, I can have more questions pop up, or no. So I'll just click no on all these. Add in some other questions in here. I can add in a photo. I wonder what this, I have some pictures ready to go, so I'll add that photo in. You could also add an audio if you want to, videos, whatever kind of context you like. And I'll go ahead and submit that. If anyone else has submitted, what that will do here is, the key thing here is that everything is being added into a location. So what we can start to see is this all populated on our map. Let me just refresh this. So you can start to see here. So now here's all the bunch of my building inventory coming in. You can also see here that it's also being symbolized by value. In this case, I have it being symbolized by the condition. So green if it's good, orange if it's okay, and red if it's a poor quality. And so I can click on any of these and then see the more information about that as well. And this is great. I can go ahead and click on this and see all of this, all the detailed information. That's great. And then if there's a picture along with it, I can see that picture all at once. But that's a lot to do, is click, 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 looking at all these points. So that's where kind of like a wonderful dashboard comes in. So in this case here, I built a dashboard around that data as well. And I think we have some new records. So I'm just going to go ahead and refresh this. And so it looks like we have a bunch of new records. So I can start to see those all here. So I can click on one of those, see where that record went. It looks like, some of them might have been because their location wasn't selected. But in this case, let's go right here. So it's flashing over to what that is. I can see the more detailed information about that one as well. So this dashboard here kind of essentially allows us to see all this information all at once. I can also start to see here if I want to look at specific buildings. So if I only want to look at all the okay conditioned buildings, I can click on those. So you can make this dashboard as interactive as you wish, or just keep it as just for informational purposes as well. So with that, I'm going to actually give this over now to Michael, who's going to show me his version of what he's been doing. So I will move over.
All right, thank you. I'm Michael Rose. I'm the GIS specialist for Shabugma Technical Services up in Sullicote, Ontario. So over the past year, we've actually been working on a housing survey, and it'll probably look a lot like what Jasmine was just showing, which hopefully means we're doing this right. So we actually decided to go with Survey 123 because it'd be the most similar to the workflows we're used to, where normally you'd have paper copies of the forms, you have to print out all your copies. Someone would have to sit down at the end of the survey and they have to tally all the results by hand. And then, I'm sure you've seen these binders before, but you get a nice binder at the end of the project and you put it on your shelf with all the other binders and it lives there until someone needs that answer again. So we've actually used Survey 123 to kind of expedite a lot of that process. So as Jasmine was shown with the maps, as you're completing surveys, you can actually capture the location of where those surveys are being completed. And then all of your results are easy to display on a map. As well as photos, you can take photos. So when you select the take photo, as well as having photos that you have already taken, you can directly use the camera on your device to take photos in the moment. And those photos will be stored alongside your survey results. We're also using the smart functionality. So as you can see the date here, rather than having the user fill that out every single time, it's auto-populating that using the date on the laptop here. So that just speeds that process up. I don't believe you mentioned this, but for our surveyor name, I'm sure all of you who have done surveys, you write your name on the top every single time. You actually have the option of storing the answer on your device, so if you're completing multiple surveys in a day, you just have to fill it out the once and it'll remember it for you going forward. For our survey, it's quite long. I believe we had 80 plus questions that we were asking. It was, I think, a 4-page document that I was handed, and they said, Mike, make this easier for us. So I've organized it under headings, which can actually be collapsed and expanded. So if there's a question you don't have an answer for, or you want to go back, it's really easy to navigate the survey. We also had a lot of conditional questions for our survey. And normally on the paper copy, you'd say, if you answered yes to this question, please answer these 3 questions. For the digital version, if you answer a conditional question, you can have questions related to that question appear only if that condition is selected. And then, as we saw with the dashboards, once you have all that information and it's collected, we can display it on a nice dashboard. And to me, I think this looks a lot nicer than an Excel spreadsheet, a lot quicker and faster to get the answers you're looking for. I know up in Wapakika, they've submitted over 100 surveys so far, so these are the results here. And we've actually gotten them, these are the most up-to-date ones. We got some in just last week. And as Jasmine was showing, you can also filter the data. So one of our priorities right now is fire safety. And we want to make sure all of our homes have smoke detectors. For any of you who attended the fire safety presentation this morning, and we can see right away almost half of our homes said they have no working smoke detector in the house. And if we wanted to have a community program to make sure those houses have smoke detectors, we can just click on that chart and we know which houses we need to go knock on their door and say, here's your smoke detector, let's get that put in. Oh, smoke alarm. They're called smoke detectors too, aren't they? No?
The alarm activates an alarm.
Okay.
Factory just set it to that.
Well, on the form it said smoke detector, so I went with that on the chart. Another feature of the filtering is that you can actually combine multiple filters together at the same time, so you can see how the data is related. So you can see that about a third of these houses that don't have smoke detectors are also using wood stoves as their primary heat source. And you can see these are the houses that both those conditions apply to. As an option for the charts, you can also have them updated alongside the map. So if you notice, as I select and deselect these, the charts themselves actually change. So you can also get a clearer view of how that information is connected. And as you saw, as I click on these, you can turn them on or off individually, or you can also reset the dashboard all at once. So this is just one of our communities that we've been working with to get this set up. But as I mentioned, we have over 80 questions in our survey. So we can set up a dashboard like this using that same information, but answering different questions, and having that information stored in one spot makes it a lot easier and quicker to do so. Oh.
I know that this is used also when you want to see where your land stops and ends, that kind of survey as well, right?
Yeah, so if you have parcel data or people going out and surveying land, you can also record that on that as well.
So my question would be, when it shows a line dividing your neighbor's land and your land, because it's taken from the sky, right? What is the width of that band? Like, is it 3 feet, 3 inches, 10 inches, or 5 feet? That you see on there.
So that's up to you. So when it comes to actually measuring out, so by default, right, when you're using these tools on your devices, right, the accuracy is only good as the smartphone or the tablet itself. But so in some cases, that's fine, right? If you're going to, let's say, a building or a house, the accuracy of your phone or a tablet is good enough because you're still at that property. But in the case, for example, if you're trying to actually divide out the location between you and your neighbor, you want that to be a little bit more accurate. So that's where you can also, all these tools actually allow you to also connect to a high precision GPS device, which allows you, basically that will override the location settings on your tablet or your phone. And then that way you can get the higher precision GPS device instead, and it'll capture that information. Now, with that being said, if you want to now symbolize that, that's up to you. Like the symbology of how thick that line is or how thin that line is, that's all subjective of how you want that to look at the end of the day. But you could capture that. So let's say that you had a fence, right? and you want, maybe while you're collecting that fence, like that line on your map, you could have like how we have the different attribute information that we're inputting in, you could input in maybe an attribution about the thickness of the fence, or where that starts and ends as well. So it's very flexible to what you want the outcome to be in this case, and how you want this to look. So a lot of the times when you're first kind of thinking about this project, I like to think of it as kind of like to reverse engineer. So kind of think about what you want to get out of this and what are the information you want to drive, and that'll kind of help you indicate what type of information you may want to collect as well. Okay, does that answer it? Great, thank you. I don't know, Michael, you want to say anything else?
So were there any more questions about the work we've done so far?
Is there a way to connect the location to the legal surveys with the map registry?
Yep, so if you had, in some cases, the legal surveys could just be, actually this reminds me of what I used to do back as like a GIS student, way back in a long time ago. So basically what happened is, not everyone has a digital copy of that land survey. A lot of times it's a piece of paper. And so what you can do is, now this is kind of going advanced of these tools itself, but what I used to do is I had to scan copy every single physical survey. And then we have tools like the desktop tool that we didn't get into today, but it's a more kind of advanced tool which allows you to actually geo-reference, so you can add those coordinates, take that scanned image, and then apply that onto the map as well. So that way you basically have to do some ground truthing of where exactly you might have like some points of interest, let's say like an intersection or something that might be on it, that can allow you to then display that onto a digital copy.
Do not take it out of the Canadian land registry and apply it to the map instead of
It depends if there's coordinates available or not. That's at the end of the day, it all becomes like the location aspect. If there's a coordinate, definitely it's a lot more streamlined workflow than if you just had a picture and you're going off the image itself.
Yeah, one of the things that we'll be pushing is to communities to do their legal survey and
Yeah.
register it. So that way you have the accurate coordinates. And
Yeah.
Makes it easier if you want to sell your property.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times, I mean, in the most ideal world, they'd be using CAD or something like that, where you can easily just bring that into GIS and then. Yeah. In some cases. Sometimes if whoever's doing the CAD remembers to turn on that world reference, then you're good to go. It's literally just drag and drop in. That's in the most perfect world, which isn't always the case, of course.
Where's the data stored?
So it depends on how you are looking at it. So as Brian mentioned, so what I'm using today was ArcGIS Online. So that's our software as a service, which is on the cloud. So our cloud infrastructure is for the most part in the US. We are working with Esri Inc. itself to get data hosting in Canada. We hopefully will have some better news by the end of the year. This is something that has been enacted in Europe. So Europe already has their data hosting there. We're hoping to get that in Canada soon, but in the meantime, it is on US soil in this case. But as Brian mentioned, we have partners like Makawa 7 who would be able to actually host the information for you, because they have servers on Canadian land. So that's the cloud version. If you really wanted to, you do have the capabilities to also host this on a local server, but it's called Enterprise. It's just another version of the same software, but it's just managed behind your firewall, and you have to do all the hosting and the server infrastructure administration and everything.
So can local housing managers or council have access to that data so they can do their own reporting?
Yes. Anyone can have access to it. It's about actually enabling that user. So on the platform itself, depending on who you are and how you're interacting with the information, will determine who has access to it. So as a council member, maybe all they're doing is viewing the information, or maybe they're submitting data. That could be one user type. as someone that's interacting with it, or someone like, let's say Michael might have something called a creator or a professional, where he has the ability to not only create content but publish data, edit data, and administer the applications as well. Any other questions? Yep.
Can you add Google imaging to it so that we can see the condition of the house at least from the outside?
Like a street view, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that
As of real time, not like picture to picture.
So with the Google question, so one thing to keep in mind is that yes, the ability is there. However, Google actually has like very strict licensing guidelines that you cannot add their information to another map that isn't Google's. So in this case here, we're using Esri mapping. So it's actually prohibited against Google's guidelines that you enable and add Google. It's because a lot of times a question comes up, oh, can I add, Street View to my map? Technically, yes, you can, but you will run into some issues with the licensing side because you can't do that. The alternative is that you can have a link that will pop up into a new tab, so that way an Esri map interface and a Google map interface is not in the same window. Another aspect is that, for example, if you have satellite imagery, whether you fly your own drones to get yours or you administer that information too, we have the tools as well for you to create and manage your own satellite imagery if you wanted to as well. That was kind of just like advanced for what I want to talk to today, but we can definitely get into that as well. Yeah. If there's not any more questions, I'll have Brian kind of go over Barb's portion, and then we will take it from there.
Thanks, Jasmine. Thanks, Mike. And just if I could add about, there was a tail end on your question about having the imagery there in real time. So that would depend on the supplier of that imagery. Right? So Google, to my knowledge, doesn't offer that real-time imagery. So you could have the link to Street View pop up, but it would only be as current as when Google collected that, right? Now, if you had another source of live imagery, then we could definitely incorporate that. Also, to the mention of the data being hosted in the cloud, for those of you that aren't familiar with cloud-hosted data, Jasmine did mention it's in the US, but it's such that you are the owners of the data, right? So Esri does not have the ability to see your data. They can't help you with resetting passwords. If you accidentally delete a survey or something like that, they can't help you recover it because data is yours. Unlike some cloud providers, if you were to load stuff onto the cloud in the T's and C's that we always click just accept without going through the fine print, they may have the data you upload can be used by us for whatever purposes that we deem to be required. That is not the case with Esri. So I just wanted to convey that if you're looking at our cloud solution, that your data is your data. It's yours to control. It always will be, and it will be you that decides who has access to it. Okay, so, and that goes to the user roles that you can license, whether it's viewer roles or people that can publish content or create content. So I hope that's clear. If you have any questions at all, at any time, my business card is sitting on top of the projector there. Please feel free to grab one, and I'm more than happy to answer questions via email or pick up a phone, give me a call at any time. So, having said that, I'm going to put on my Barb Duffin hat now. Barb has more hair than I do, too. And we're going to go through her presentation. So Barb showed us a couple of months ago what she did. And essentially, part of this presentation, she performed a census on one of her neighborhoods. So similar to what was shown before, her census will show the number of people in the house, the ages of those people, and because one of the communities was built on a floodplain. So we'll start going through here. Can I just go down here? Okay. So who's Mashigawak Council? They service 7 member communities. They're listed there. And you can see a quick map, a printed map of their territory there. And you will have, as I say, at the end of this presentation, Jasmine will put up another QR code there for those that want a copy of all the slides. Let us know, scan the QR code, enter your details, and we'll have it to you within the next few days or so, if not before the weekend. So these are the communities that Barb serves. They've got 7 First Nations, the Grand Chief, 2 Deputy Grand Chiefs. It covers 38%, their territory covers 38% of Ontario. Vast majority of the region is located in the Husband and James Bay lowlands, and some of it without year-round road access. Now, this is an important slide. So, GIS, we're here talking to you about GIS and land management and sustainability. But GIS, the tools that are available to you can be used for so much more, depending on what you want to use them for. They can be used in fire safety. They can be used for water or wastewater management. They can be used to map out gas or electric lines. Assets, right? If you've got a playground and you need to maintain the equipment in that playground, repaint the monkey bars or replace the wood on a park bench or a playground bench, right? As I said in the beginning, everything on the planet has a place on the planet, and there is a lot of data, might not be immediately obvious, but there could be a lot of data around that item and where it sits on the planet. And we help you visualize that to manage that item and to see patterns that might not be visible if you're looking at a spreadsheet, right? Like heat maps or things like that. So you can see here, this is where Barb uses GIS, right? Traditional values collection, education, technical services. And the two ones in yellow there are what we're going to focus on here. Now, a special project, Story Maps, basically is a web-based tool that's used to tell exactly that. It's a story. And that story can be comprised of maps, it can be video, it can be sounds. So you basically have a web browser and you're going through a storybook, and it's a visual storybook. It tells a story, and whether that could be a cultural story, historical story, a neighborhood story, a community story. It's got many, many uses there. And then, again, the other special projects, which admittedly I don't have a lot of information on those, but at the end of this slide deck, Barb's contact information is there. So if you want to email her, she's more than receptive to answer your questions. Just tell her Brian was responsible for the email onslaught she's going to get in her inbox. Now, related to infrastructure. So, Barb used data collected by OFN-TSC, another Esri Canada client, and she stores that data. So Barb uses Esri Enterprise. So admittedly, Esri Enterprise, it's a big investment. Barb's community or their council is an enterprise license agreement, so they basically have access to our entire stack of technology. So most of her data is collected and stored on premise. And this is some of the screenshots there. So her community assets are collected and stored and then managed for easy access, all towards asset management, preventive maintenance, planning. On the technical services side and on housing, they carry out housing inspections regularly. Typically, they used to do it with a clipboard. And then they had to save it in a certain standard to send it to Indigenous Services Canada. And there was a lot of duplication of effort there. So what Barb did was she used our technology, created an app for her staff to use an iPad on, and you could use it whether it's an Apple iOS device or whether it's an Android device. Our technology is available to deploy on both, obviously, as well as on a laptop if you wanted to go out and use a laptop to deploy, albeit it would be a little bit heavier to carry around or maneuver. So that resulted in time savings, no more paperwork, and the data is automatically collected, can be exported into a spreadsheet if you want, but more importantly, it's all on a map and would show you things that you might not normally notice, as I say, on a spreadsheet. And here's the result of some of that, right? So she's got all of her buildings listed out, and then she's got ArcGIS Online, which is the top right screenshot there. Part of her data has been put online for people that might just need view-only access. right? So here she's got collector application on the iPad, ArcGIS Online account to download or export the data, and then she uses our desktop technology to compile the report for export to Indigenous Services Canada. She had a project, Cheshawaan First Nation, built on a floodplain. And so they, through the years, obviously have suffered damage from that. And this was a community that had to be relocated. So what they did was she created this census survey that I spoke of, and which completed demographic survey as well as housing inspection. And from that, these were some of the data that she collected. I don't know if you guys can see that, but, sorry. From that, this is one of the dashboards that she has. So similar to what Michael and Jasmine showed, these are the address points, and she can click on any one of those address points to show the demographics and details around that address, right? So we've got another map here. There's a single address point. Number 51 looks to be highlighted there. And then she's got all of the details on the other slot, bottom right there, on the attributes or associated information tagged to that point. And then this is the housing inspection dashboard. So here you can see, similar to what Michael showed, she's got the houses there. She's got a colored legend there for what requires major repairs, minor repairs. She's got a picture there. She's got attributes such as if the house is privately or publicly privately owned or rented, date of the inspection, are there any repairs, and then a picture of the house as well. And then here she's got it set up so that zooming in and clicking on each home will give you the information on that home. And that's it. So if that's Barb's, as I say, Jasmine, if you want to pull up the survey.
One sec, let me just, in case anyone wants Barb's, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger.
Are there any other questions about any of what you've seen over the past 50 minutes? Hopefully this presentation has spurred some ideas amongst you about how to use technology, and whether it's our technology or just anything to make your life easier, technology is a good thing, right? Especially if it saves time, it saves lives, and just makes decision making and the capture of history and traditions and everything easier. So hopefully that has spurred some ideas, and as I say, if you want to grab a card, I'm happy to chat with you about the technology that we offer and how it might serve your community and make lives better within the community.
You just make it so everything's on one, so in case.
And then this is the QR code with Barb's email on the side there. So
we don't just skip back between the two, everything's on one. Yeah. Yes.
Just a question.
Sure.
What's the cost?
It would depend on what you would need as far as users go. We would have to take a look at what the licensing is usually the least expensive compared to the level of effort that might be involved, right? Because you need people to collect the data and the time spent. It could be as low as for one person $1,000 a year. But that $1,000 will give you everything that you've seen and actually more. There's a ton that we haven't shown that you would have access to, but in the interest of time, we just don't have time to show it all to you.
So what do you mean $1,000?
For one user to create everything that you've seen today would be a maximum of $1,000 per year.
So the licensing is
It's an annual subscription.
based on how many people using it?
It's a named user license. So it's like Microsoft Office, right? You're buying a license for that person to use. But we do have different levels of licensing, right? So if you just needed a viewer license for either council or elders or that type of licensing is $200 per user per year, right? And that would give you all the support either from myself or Jasmine. That's at no cost. We could help you build out. But we would help you before we want to sell you anything. We would want to really help you nail down the specifics of the project, just to make sure that we understand it as well.
So is there a one-time cost to set it up? Or?
No, so in this case, like, we could book Jasmine's time and run you through, like, if you had a form that you wanted to convert, we would just set up a call and run you through it and teach you how to do it and record the session, and away you go.
Yeah, and the key thing is that we don't want to do everything for you.
Yeah,
The key thing that we do is that we educate, so in that time we will work together, so that way after you don't have to rely on me, that you're empowered to now do your other work by yourself.
yeah, we want to teach, you want somebody to be able to sustain the ongoing with the technology, right? So we would teach you, train you, offer you guidance, and then we'll always be there for support, but hopefully you will have enough that you can start, oh, I could use it for this, I could use it for that, and we would provide you with the basics on getting stood up that way.
Yep.
No, so the question was, with communities that have bad service, are there any issues? Bad internet service or no internet service, are there any issues? The answer to that is no, because the forms that are created can be taken offline. So what you would do is you would use the form and collect the data as you would, and that data would be stored on the device until such time that there is a connection back to the internet, in which case it is then automatically loaded up to the cloud.
It's a very common workflow for a lot of our northern community users. Yeah, in some cases they don't have internet for proper internet for a good week, 2 weeks, a month or so. And in that case, they will do all the work that they need to do, because at the end of the day, we would download this offline before you anticipate to go offline. And in the back end, I'm going to get a little bit technical, in the back end on your phone, there's a tiny little database that gets created, and all that information that you're collecting will be saved to that database. And then once you have connectivity again, that'll be pushed, those edits will be pushed back into, whether it's a cloud or behind your firewall, whichever way you've deployed it.
So, as far as the amount of data, there's no limit, right? As far as losing the information, if the data is on the device and before it gets uploaded to the device, if that device is destroyed, then the data is more than likely non-recoverable, in which case you'd probably have to do it again. But once the data is uploaded to the cloud, if that device gets destroyed, that's fine, because the data is now in the cloud and accessible anywhere on the planet, essentially.
But you can only collect a certain amount of data in a day, right?
Yeah. Really, time is really the limiting factor there, not the technology. So thank you, everybody, hope this has been helpful. Hopefully some light bulbs have gone on. And please take a card if you want some more information. Happy to chat with you at any time.
Thank you, everyone, for your time today.